Barakatuh. Like a bride groom, I was just about to wipe my face. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you're well. Welcome to our marriage show. Pretty late in the evening, I know. But hey, it's better than never, right? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Barefoot Institute. My name is Henrietta Savati and I'm very tired today. It's late. It's our usual time is in the morning, but we are doing it tonight because we have been very busy during the daytime with lots of different activities, football, and Ajma was away, so we are doing it tonight.
Yes, I hope you're well. If you're joining us, please say salam to us. We'd love to know who is out there. A few people have joined already. I am exhausted as well. I have just traveled from Doncaster. I was in Doncaster helping a fundraiser for a mosque, and my train fashionably was late.
It's a Sunday, so
Oh my
we would expect.
God.
We would expect. And you haven't had dinner yet?
I haven't eaten, so I'm having some milk.
But I made some very nice dinner, so
Sounds good. I've got Faiza Jamil says Subhanallah. No? No,
Shahana, I think she's tagging somebody.
tagging somebody. Okay.
Thank you for your shares last week. I've seen a couple of people sharing our videos, so thank you so much for doing that. Jazakallah khair. And keep sharing if you find any of these conversations useful. We do this because we believe in confident Muslim families and we want to have mature conversations about relationships. So
Asif says, surely the biggest threat to marriage is by definition marriage itself. Asif Ansari, what have you been eating and what have you been taking?
he's having his dinner, I think, and he's just having a good dig at us.
Why are you having late night show? Why not, Surul Khan? It's a good time to have, Sunday night. What are you doing otherwise? Sitting at home and watching programs? Watch ours. Switch the main TV off and watch our show. It's called The Marriage Show, in which we discuss many things, including your marriage, our marriage, marriages of all people. But today, particularly this evening, we're going to be covering, what are we covering? Threats.
Threats to marriage. So what we wanted to, actually before we start, we wanted to ask you that every now and then we would like to bring real questions of real issues of real couples. So we are asking you to send us your struggles, your questions, your dilemmas, where you are in your relationship, and maybe you want to have a conversation around this. Obviously it will be without any names, anonymously, but we will be discussing real couples issues. So you can email us at info@barefootinstitute.com, or you can visit our website where you can fill in a form and you can request to have a conversation in the open, of course without name, as
You know
I mentioned.
what? I can actually invite them to join us here. If you want to talk to us and if you want to participate in our program with your question, perhaps with a point, 3-4 minutes, no more than that, if you email us info@barefootinstitute.com with your particular question, with your particular story, with your particular experience that you want to share, if you let us know in advance, we can send you a link and we can then get you to join us live on our show with your video, without your video, on audio, whichever one you prefer. I can send you that link. It's all possible. I can interview you. I can hear from yourself. Let's make this program a bit more interactive with yourselves. So if you do want to join us, share with us your thoughts, your stories, your insights. It is a great opportunity to do that. Send us an email, info@barefootinstitute.com, with what story you want to share. Give us a bit more. If you've got a question that you want to unpack or pack with us, talk to us, just send all of those details, your email address, your telephone number, so that we can get in touch with you and we can have you live as our guest. How about that?
That's fine. If you take care of the logistics and the technicality, that's fine.
It's very, very easy for everybody.
Otherwise, send us any of your questions, and if you just want us to have a conversation about this, we will do that as well.
I think we need to ban a few people before we open up the door. Asif is banned for sure.
Why? What is he doing again?
No, he's not doing anything. I'm just worried that he's going to invade the show and he's going to throw all sorts of things at us. So Asif, if you want to join us in any of our programs, you're banned. I'm just joking. Of course you are.
I would love him to have it as a guest. I think he would make a fantastic guest.
Or maybe we should book him up first. Asif and his wife, Sarah, as our first couple guest, joining us for our show next time.
I think he just choked on his dinner. Anyhow, let's go back to the topic that what we are talking about today. We started slightly late, so apologies
forgive
for that.
me. You know why we started late? My train was fashionably late. I got to King's Cross at 8:30. And from King's Cross to our house, it's 11 miles or 12 miles. I did 12 miles in 25 minutes.
MashaAllah.
I don't know how I did that. On my bike, by the way. I was paddling like no tomorrow, as fast as I could. Surat Mia says, what wisdom behind plural marriage? what is wisdom behind plural marriage? What's a plural marriage? I didn't know plural marriages existed. Did you know that?
I think I know what he's talking
Well,
about.
he has to be more precise. Okay, well, Surat Khan, if you want to talk to us about it, send us your full question on an email. Email is info@barefootinstitute.com. Let's get back to the topic of our discussion tonight.
So we are talking about threats to marriage.
It's available in this book, I think, in a
Of
massive
course, and
way.
I've got some notes as well.
Okay,
so.
why don't you start while I go to the page itself?
So I think a lot of people are probably interested in, or maybe they had an idea that the threats to marriage is the obvious signs of obvious things like physical threats or emotional threats. But of course, we will be talking about all of it. And I think in your book, if I remember well, there are 7 points.
Page 122. Just in
Yeah.
case you have it with you.
Which is very clearly explained. So there are 7 signs of threats. Shall I read it out?
Yeah, sure.
I can't find it on my phone. So there are 7 threats to marriage, and these are the things that we will be looking at today. Number 1, a lack of understanding of the self and the spouse. Number 2, the presence of being a control freak.
I laugh.
Number 3, the untamed ego. Number 4, uncommunicated expectations. Number 5, unresolved conflicts. Number 6, a lack of empathy. And 7, an absence of intimacy. Now you might be asking, why did I give out all these things? It's because they look very simple, but they are very complicated. So we'll be talking about, we may not even be able to cover all
Probably
of them.
one or two we'll discuss today in detail.
So which one do you want to go for?
Let's go in order. So a lack of understanding of the self and the spouse. You know, when we were talking about the title itself, my wife and I said to ourselves, what topic should we talk about this week? So my wife suggested one thing, I suggested something else. Eventually we came up with a topic called threats to marriage. My daughter instantly said, oh, that must be to do with affairs. That was her response.
Cheating, I think
Cheating,
that's
yes.
the word she used.
Now,
exactly.
cheating is a threat, but that is not actually the real threat. Cheating is a manifestation of something bigger and more grave that's happened in your relationship. Those are the threats that you need to unpack, understand, and safeguard against. And the manifestations will never happen. In other words, the symptoms will not happen if you deal with the main root causes of your threats. Number 1 is to understand yourself and understand your spouse. If there is a lacking, then there is a problem. Let's expand on that. What do you understand by understanding the spouse and understanding yourself?
Understanding my spouse, but so I understand by the understanding. So obviously, understanding the self and the spouse starts well before marriage.
This is funny, I've got to tell you. Somebody called Ella Douai Simo has written, my name is Muhammad from Morocco, looking for a wife to connect through WhatsApp. And then he has also put his number.
His telephone number.
He's put the number on. Now that's quite a bold thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this.
Well, we can't do anything if he has put.
We don't know him, and I don't think I have ever seen the name.
No, we don't even know. It's a random person, but it's funny that the person should put out his details. I'm looking for a wife. And this is my WhatsApp number, please talk to me. Brothers and sisters, let's not talk about how to find a spouse at the moment. We're talking about how to safeguard our relationship from threats. Number 1 is lack of understanding of the self and understanding of your spouse. You're about to say.
That it starts well before relationship, well before marriage.
Correct.
It starts before the consideration, how clear am I what I want? How knowledgeable am I about finding out about other people? What are my instincts like? Do I understand when I'm talking to somebody from a place of, can I build a life with this person? Do I know myself enough? How long what I can promise? Can I deliver what I promise? These things are really big issues in our community. I think that a lot of us have this amazing idea that, oh, I will be the best wife, and we promise the world, or I will be the best husband, and we promise the world. And do we really know how far we can go? And I'm just particularly thinking about how we change throughout time. Is that what we promise at the beginning of our relationship, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, doesn't really hold water. We can't deliver, we can't do it, or we won't do it.
Well, I would start by asking ourselves, do I know myself sufficiently before I get married? Have I invested in my own personal growth? Have I invested in my understanding of marriage? Have I invested in my expectations and all the things that I would be doing or delivering or expecting from a marriage? Have I actually invested in my own growth? If I failed in understanding myself, if I failed in investing in my growth, there is going to be a massive problem in the relationship. It's like that saying, I'm looking for a wife who's going to wake me up for Fajr. And the Sheikh turned around and said, well, if your mother couldn't wake you up for Fajr for the last 20 years, how on earth is your wife going to wake you up for Fajr?
But that's a very, very unrealistic
Expectation.
yardstick for a marriage. So if that's the reason why you're looking for a wife, I think there is something
Fundamentally wrong.
Completely wrong in
So
your head.
therefore, you need to know yourself. You need to know your weaknesses, your strengths. You need to know what you can offer in a marriage, what you would like from a marriage. Be honest about it. There is nothing wrong in being honest. What's the other person going to say? The worst they're going to say is, really sorry, can't do. Okay, you start again. It's better than getting into a marriage, getting into a tangle with a person who actually doesn't meet your requirements. You don't meet theirs, and you're just fighting. What is the point? So my first and the foremost request would be, get to know yourself. Really get to know yourself. And it takes a lot to get to know yourself.
More than just getting to know yourself, I think it's more about being comfortable with yourself. Be self-sufficient, know how to look after yourself, know how to maintain yourself. Because if your expectation is that I want a wife to run my house, or I want my wife to cook me food, if you can't look after yourself, you will be always dependent.
It's the replacement mother figure that the boys are looking for.
Yes, and I think equally for women to be able to stand on their feet, get educated, and find the grounding on which they can stand. Because I say this all the time, you probably are bored of it now, but I think it's a responsibility for us to be able to look after ourselves as women as well. Anything can, God forbid, happen to us. Husbands can be taken away. I am responsible for feeding my children.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're looking for a replacement father, again, it's not the right place. Marriage is not the replacement mother or a father space where you just replace them. It doesn't work like that. A mother and a father are very different. Their roles are very different. What my wife does to my children, I'm sitting here thinking, my God, she never does that to me. It's true. Can't. I'm not her blood relative. I'm a spouse, a partner in life. The compassion, the mercy is very different for a child than for a spouse and a partner. The patience is very different. Therefore, you can't expect your father or mother replacement through your husband or your wife. So get to know yourself and get to know your spouse. When I say get to know your spouse, I actually literally say get to know them well. What is it they like? What do they dislike? If you can keep on doing what they dislike all the time, you're going to lose them very fast. If you keep on doing what they like, they're going to love you more. Getting to know your spouse. So the biggest threat to a marriage is that you don't understand your spouse, and your wife or your husband doesn't understand you.
But also what we mean by understanding is talk about finances, talk about how you manage if you get into debt, talk about security, talk about parenting, talk about the big things in life, the stuff that really matters. That how do you know a person isn't going out to have a cup of coffee with them necessarily? Look behind the behavior. Look how they treat other people. Look how they talk about their own finances. Look how they talk about managing their households. Look how they talk about their relationship with their family. What would family members say about them? And talk to their friends. Really gathering information is so crucial before you get into a marriage, because if you don't, you will find yourself trying to figure out, but it might be too late, and then you realize that you might have got into a relationship that will never really in the realistic world work.
Okay, so let me just refer to the book itself. You've got the book here. Take a notebook and write down some specific things about your spouse. Try and be accurate in your observation and focus on your partnership. Remember this. What do you most like about your spouse? I.e. skills, attributes, and specific talents. Second question you need to consider, what do you most dislike about your partner? Third question, how does your partner react to various situations? 4, how many times does your spouse get upset? Number 5 is it? Number 6, 5, yes. Number 6, do you notice any changes in your body language or facial expressions? Number 7, how often does your partner complain? Number 8, how often does your partner compliment you? And number 9, how well do you work together? I can go on and on. Basic things that you need to know about one another. Do you know your wife well? Do you know your husband well? So when you have mastered that aspect of your relationship will not be threatened. Remember, the foremost threat is the fact that you don't know yourself and you don't know your spouse. Do you know me well enough, Hannah?
I think I do.
I think she's right. I think she knows me very well. And I think I know you pretty well.
I think what really works is that if you are getting to know each other, and this is a really important part of it, when you're getting to know each other, you develop a common language that you are not even speaking. You are picking up cues from each other, and you are documenting it within yourself. And when you talk about this, you realize that after a while you don't have to use words. You are in a situation, for example, in an uncomfortable situation, where you don't need to say anything to me. I look at your face and I know exactly what I need to do or what I don't need to do, what I can say or what I want to say or what I don't need to say.
Well, you're being very observant, and that's a very
Because it's an important aspect that sometimes we will not have an opportunity to talk about things, and we just have to look at each other, and we have to pick up cues from each other.
the signals, of course, the facial expression, the body language, the sixth sense. We call it ilham. It's called intuition within you. Knowing their surroundings with intuition is an essential part of getting to know your partner. We will not receive wahi. Wahi is revelation. Revelation only came to the prophets. However, Allah has given within all of us a very important concept called ilham. Ilham means intuition. Be intuitive about your partner. Be intuitive about your spouse, about yourself. Consult your heart. Get to know the sight, the smell, the texture, the sound of your surrounding. Be spatially aware. If you are not spatially aware, and if you are not responding, as my wife has just said, by the facial expressions, by slight gestures in the person's body language, then you don't know each other well. I'm not saying you should second guess.
No, but also there's a fascinating thing which we have called the human intuition system, and the human intuition system isn't one thing. It isn't just an intuitive hit. It's an entire complex system that is like a knot, and there are lots of different strands in that knot, including your brain, including your body, including your gut, including every aspect. So the left brain does something, the right brain does something when it comes to intuition. So it's a very complex thing, and if you know how to use it well, I think it's an incredible life skill to have, because once you are able to activate it in any situation, you will pick up things that nobody else can.
Of course.
And I think it's fascinating when you are able to, sometimes you feel like you're trying to consider somebody, or someone recommends someone to you for consideration, and everything looks perfect on paper, but something just doesn't feel right. And you have to listen to it. You have to go and search, what is it that doesn't feel right about this person? And you might find an answer and say it's a yes, or it's a no for consideration.
Do you know yourself? Do you know your partner? That's the question we've just posed for you to consider. Go on, give us a call, or write on the screen. The screen has gone quite silent today. People have fallen asleep. I bet you any money that you don't know your partner well. Or you can tell your partner he doesn't know or she doesn't know you well. If you're fallen asleep, come on, wake up, guys. It's not even 9, it's 9:25. It's not 10 o'clock yet. 10 o'clock is when most people I can see clocking off, going to bed. But until then, you should be with us, inshallah. It's a Sunday night. Tomorrow is a school day, I know. Kids should have gone to bed by now. If the kids haven't gone to bed, at least they're getting ready to go to bed. So you can enjoy this show with us. What is it that you feel you don't know about your spouse? What is it that your spouse doesn't know about you? Number one, we're covering the biggest threat to any relationship is the fact that you don't know yourself and you don't know your spouse. Is that what you think is correct? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Give us a shout. Go on, put up your messages if you don't mind. We'd love to hear from you. People have gone quiet at this moment in time, so I'm going to encourage you to write to us. So
I think they're just tapping into their intuition. They are trying to figure out, they're looking at their wife or their husband. It's like, do I really know this person, or what do I need to learn about this person?
I think so. Is there anything that you still don't know about me?
I don't think it's about just the knowing. I think we know each other's stories.
I'm not talking about the physical knowing. I'm talking about intuitive knowing. Is there anything that you think you don't know about me?
Yes.
Good. Keep that. Otherwise,
there are some things that it's good to not to know.
Because that's the mystery of a relationship. If you get the reason I ask this question is because I have the same. There are certain things that I don't know about you intuitively, and I don't think I'll ever know about you intuitively. And also, as you grow, as we get older, we change. That's the excitement of getting to know your spouse regularly, renewing that concept of knowing yourself and your spouse. So don't be stale in a relationship, thinking I know her well, too well. I know him too well. I even know him before he blinks. Well, it could be quite scary if you know him before he blinks. I think you should keep some areas where you want to discover. Ask a bit more, find a bit more. Show interest in your spouse. If you show no interest in your spouse, then you will not discover about your spouse, and your spouse will get bored.
And that's the whole thing about couples struggling, because when you get into a stale situation with each other, it isn't always just that it's a routine. That's part of it. It's of course a big part of it, but it's also there is a deadness within us where we are not curious about the other person. So we are not tapping into interesting things. We are not wondering what he or she would say. We are just kind of take everything as it is without leaving any opportunity to be curious and say, well, actually, I didn't know that about you, or you didn't know that about me. And that makes a relationship a lot more vibrant, a lot more alive.
And I think that's where we need to put that aside. Misbah Rafiq has written, my husband knows me to a big degree, but it's taken many years. Alhamdulillah, we talk to each other and ask each other questions. Very good, Misbah. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's taken you a long time because you have both been on a journey. And a journey is always a fantastic thing to be on, because journey means there is no beginning, no end. You're constantly at it. That's life, you know. There was a beginning for us in life, of course, and there will be an end. It's just that we don't know when it will end. We just have to carry on this journey. It is a journey of discovery with your spouse. Rahima Begum says, but sometimes...
I think she started a sentence, or maybe she didn't finish. I'm sure it will come. And Misbah continues, I take an interest in my husband's likes and dislikes. Yes. Yes, wow. Sometimes it's that simple.
Some spouses just take interest in their dislikes.
Yes.
And they just fight. I know you don't like this.
True.
It can't be just dislikes. It has to be likes and dislikes. Misbah continues, yes, alhamdulillah, it's a journey of discovery. Absolutely right. And you know, certain things you will not like about your spouse.
Ever.
For sure. For example, my wife's coffee. I can't stand it. I'll never stand it. Right?
Yeah.
That's life. I have to learn to live with it, unfortunately. 20 years later, I'm still here complaining, but never mind, it's not going to change.
I have a very long list of things that I don't
tell
like.
everyone about them.
I'm not going to disperse all of them.
I just talked about coffee. It's nothing personal about you.
I know.
Is it just the thing that you like?
I wasn't thinking about anything personal. I was just some things I can't stand.
That's okay.
Anyway, we all have our likes and dislikes.
But sometimes it's better to keep things from your past and not tell your spouse. I did not say you should tell your spouse about everything from your past. Remember, brothers and sisters, getting to know your spouse and getting to know yourself does not require you to do a Christian confession. Christian confession is where, in Catholic churches, Christian people, and that's their faith, and we respect that, they do a confession to the Father, the priest. A confession enables them to be absolved of their responsibility or their sin. That's the theology of Catholics, not Islam. Muslims don't believe that. We believe our confession, if there is a confession, it comes with Allah and to Allah. I sit on my prayer mat or at my own time and space when I make supplications, dua, I make my confession. Whatever wrong I have made against Allah, I ask Him to forgive me. If I have done something wrong against a fellow human being, I seek their forgiveness by directly approaching them and having a confession or a proper time with them. But your spouse does not need to know about your sins of the past, because your sins of the past are yours. Remember this distinction. Yes, if you, for example, are in debt, yes, your spouse would need to know, because the last thing you want your spouse to do is live in fear of debt collectors coming and knocking on the doors. If you've been involved in criminal activities and you have got a bad criminal record, it's a good idea to let your spouse know. You have a particular addiction perhaps that is ongoing and you need your spouse to know. That's fine, but talking about your sin that are private, your spouse doesn't need to know that. If you tell your spouse about all your secrets or your past sins, they will disappear. They'll run away from you. I'd rather you keep it to yourself. That's the best way. And that's the Islamic way, by the way. Okay, let's read the next one. If you want to read Rahima Begum.
You just read it. And Misbah said, yes, alhamdulillah, learn to live with it, agree to disagree, and focus on the things you have in common, morals and principles, respect and love.
Correct. I think that's a very beautifully put statement, Misbah. So first one, biggest threat is to get to know your spouse and know yourself. Very profound about past sins. Don't need to know. Absolutely. And if you don't need to know, don't ask. I asked the brothers. I had a case, and I'll tell you the case. One of the members of that relationship had a relationship outside marriage before marriage, and that particular person was pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to confess by the other spouse, and the person confessed, and then that spouse used it against this person who confessed for the rest of their life until they divorced.
Whoa.
It was a knife sharper than the sharpest knife on this earth. Every time there was an argument, the spouse would use it as a tool against the confession that the spouse made. So evil that is. It is so evil to do that. I use the word evil knowingly. And you know what? Therefore, don't tell them. Even if they bug you, don't tell them. It's none of their business. Why are you niggling inside you? Shaitan is whispering inside you to doubt your wife or your husband, to know about their past, to dig and dig. What are you going to find? There is a Bengali saying, when you start digging, instead of digging worms, you may find big and venomous snakes. So stop digging.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question to ask. So, what do we do with sins that are committed while you're married? So, since you know each other and it's that the partner is part of your life, what about those sins? And especially, again, the sins, I understand that the ones that are affecting your relationship, affecting marital life, or affecting the home, children, those have to be openly discussed.
I suppose one has to.
But I don't think there is any sin that you should keep away since you got married. So you started a life together. I think there is a responsibility.
Not necessarily. You can't always tell your spouse about your sins. You can't.
No. What I mean.
So, for example, walking along the road, guys always look at girls. That's a sin. If he comes home and says, "Hey, I looked at 20 girls today," the wife would go mental. He needs to ask Allah to forgive him. Should not be looking in the first place. Ask Allah to forgive. Ya Allah, forgive me for I could not control my eyes. Learn to control it. I don't need to tell my wife about that. Or my wife did something. Maybe she was backbiting somebody. That's her business between her and Allah. Sort it out and go and ask forgiveness from that person. I don't need to know. It's none of my business.
But you see, I totally agree with that part. But if this keeps happening, that the man, in this case particularly, is looking at girls on a regular basis, it becomes a habit. They don't discuss it at home. It becomes habitual for him until the habit takes him to another step and another step and another step. So where do you end? Where do you involve? And I think it's an important thing to talk about, because this is a society where we are, and we have all sorts of, both men and women, all sorts of temptations. So if you don't discuss these kind of issues at home, it becomes a habit of hiding, a habit of lying, a habit of doing something that is fundamentally against your relationship.
It's a problem here. The problem is, can the wife or the husband deal with that kind of confession? If the husband and the wife are not in the mental space to be able to deal with it, then you're destroying them. It's not worth it. So by burdening them with more burden than they can bear, you're destroying and you're damaging a relationship. So you need to, of course, assess your relationship. You need to know if your wife or your husband can actually cope with it. If it's a personal sin, deal with it yourself.
But if it's an issue, you have to flag it up.
At some stage. But if the wife or the husband are not ready or can't cope with it, then what's the point? So if you can manage it, go and manage it. Remember, there is a reason why Allah has made it a sin. But there is a reason why Allah has mentioned it in the Quran. It's because there is a habit that man wants to look. And there is a habit women have, which is to display, to show what they have. Both of them have been very clearly contained in the Quran by Allah's orders. O man and woman, lower your gaze and wear modest clothes, so that our sight is moderated and our attire is moderated, in order for both to take responsibility. Anyway, let's move on. I think we don't want to get too stuck in it. Haji Sadiq Saeeda says,
I don't think we will ever understand our spouses in full term. Only Allah knows how each individuals are, and it's so wrong when we are so judgmental.
Well, look, we're not asking you, Saeeda, to judge your spouse. Getting to know your spouse is not about judgment.
No,
it's about getting to know them on a flat level. There is no right and wrong about what you know about your spouse. I am short. He's fat. I am tall. He is not. These are immaterial. These are judgments. But the reality is, I'm short. What's the big deal about it? Getting to know your spouse the way they are, with their good, bad, and the ugly traits. That's what we're talking about. And getting to know yourself about your good, bad, and the ugly traits. That's why I began by saying, get to know your strengths and the strengths of your spouse. So it's not about passing judgment. No, it's about knowing them for who they are and accepting them.
Acceptance is really the big word here.
Accepting them for who they are, because the Quranic verse is, Allah made you and your spouse. Allah made them. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Allah has created both of you And if Allah has created both of you, why are you looking for faults in Allah's creation? That's why getting to know your spouse and accepting them for who they are. No judgments about their body shape, their size, their looks, their height, their hair color, or lack of hair, lack of beard, or beard. Don't make judgments about them, because then you're doubting Allah's creation. Yes, of course, you can discuss about the personalities, the habits, the bad traits that they may have developed as a result of bad company. That's not the same thing as making a judgment about that person. Very important. There's another one Misbah has written. Shaitan acts. Shaitan's act, you said it beautifully, Brother Ajmal Nasrur, so assuring to hear. Yes, indeed. The whispers of Shaitan is massive. And then Miss Rafiq, who is most engaged with our program today, yes, so important to know yourself first. And like the sister Henrietta said, acceptance is vital. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Miss for being so kind and so connected with us today. What about the rest of you? Are you all asleep? Asif, have you taken...
I was just about to say, where is Asif?
Asif, have you taken offense to my statement that I banned you? I've not banned you, brother. You're welcome to our house anytime. You're welcome to join our program anytime. Go on, give us your insight, your wisdom. You've been married to your wife for a long time. And you said she's the luckiest woman in the world to have been married to you for 25 years or something like that. I still remember 20 years. May Allah keep you together for longer.
Amen.
So, what is your take on getting to know yourself and your spouse? Do you know each other well?
Well, actually, I also want to throw in something. I have been always listening to this kind of conversations, and I read a lot. And as you know, this is something I really care about, which is personal development. But one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that we develop in a relationship. We don't grow ourselves.
No, we don't.
I can go to the mountains, which I did, and I thought I'm going to grow into this amazing person.
Into the mountains or what?
On the top of the mountains.
No, I was into the mountains.
I was literally living in the mountains. You know, it's wonderful when we do everything that we can to develop, but actually human beings develop in relationships. We are born that way. Our brain is wired in that way so that we change. We expand, we shrink, we get rid of bad habits with the help of a spouse. And it's this thing that we don't understand, that knowing the self isn't about a selfish seeking. Even when we are getting to know ourselves, why do we do it? Because we want to be better people for others. We want to be better mothers, we want to be better daughters, we want to be better parents, we want to be better wives, we want to be better friends. That's why we are doing the development, not for some. I mean, I know this because I come from a different tradition. So everything was around just be yourself and develop yourself. But for the sake of what? So I can actually be a better person for somebody else.
You know the Quranic verse.
For the world, not just for one person.
The Quranic verse is وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ. Who is better than the one who invites others to the words of Allah? Very beautiful, actually. You just don't develop yourself, but you invite others to develop. You just don't go yourself, but you go with a partner in life. You take your family. Allah says, save yourself and your family from the punishment of the hereafter. All of these things indicate one thing. The Arabic word insan actually comes from the root word uns, which means a family, belonging, where we belong together. You know, they say, that English saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And this development together with your spouse is what makes a marriage work, which is why most people thrive when they're married. I certainly have thrived because I'm married. If I was on my own, I'll probably be aimless. I'll probably be running around the world like a headless chicken. I'm pretty certain. And
you still do the same thing.
But I'm still grounded. The difference is I'm married and I have a ground where I come back.
But I don't ground you.
And I've got children, I've got responsibility. And ultimately, that's a very good thing you've just said. I'm grounded, but you don't grind me. It's very important, because when a spouse halts you completely and doesn't allow you to grow, it's the wrong spouse to be with. When a spouse encourages of your growth, facilitates the grounding process, but allows you to enjoy the freedom of life that Allah has given you, that's the spouse you want to be with. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about getting to know your spouse and getting to know yourself. Are you that kind of a spouse that enables your husband or your wife to grow, facilitate their growth? Or are you the type of spouse that actually halts them? You want to know where they are, you call them up every 5 seconds, You get upset if they go out without you. You go bananas if they are late. You are constantly checking on them. Are you that kind of a spouse? If you are, then there is a major problem in your relationship. And that's a threat because you don't know yourself, you're insecure. You validate your existence by the approval and constant company of your husband or your wife. That's a problem. You need to validate your own self. You exist because of who you are. Allah has made you. Not because of your husband or your wife's existence. They existed before you and they will exist without you, for sure. So if your husband or your wife is constantly pulling you back, restricting you and restraining you from enjoying the ni'mah of Allah, then there is a problem. That's a threat.
Let's go to the next point. I
Next
think.
one, we won't have the time. Because
No.
next one is bigger. It's much bigger than the first one we've discussed. It's all about, we'll inshallah discuss that, but I do want you to be involved with us.
There might be some more comments. We just can't see
I
them.
don't see any comments from anybody else. The
No?
last one was Misbah, who said, it's so important to know yourself first and take Sister Henrietta has said, accept your spouse. Go on, brothers and sisters, put your thoughts and ideas on our screen because we love hearing from you. Without your comments and questions, we can't really make our program exciting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your marriage with protection, love, trust, always ameen, summa ameen to us. So mashallah, Misbah,
Ameen.
we make dua for you. When you do that, I've got to tell you this joke. Husband came home and he was making dua for his
Oh, I know this joke.
he was making dua for his wife, for his friend. Ya Allah, give my good friend a wonderful wife. Ya Allah, give him a beautiful wife, etc., etc. His wife came and thumped him, saying, "Stop it now." He said, "Why do you want me to stop this? I'm making dua for my friend." She goes, "I know your plan. I know you exactly." "What do you mean you know me? What's my plan?" He said. She said, "Well, because you're making this dua, the angels would say Ameen, which means to you too. In other words, you want another wife. And that's why you're making this dua, so that the angels will say, may Allah give you a good wife, a beautiful wife. But I'm not good enough." Well, ladies and gentlemen, as a joke aside, let's go back to Misbah's point. Thank you, Misbah, for making that dua for us. We make same dua for you. May Allah bless you and your family and everybody else. So today we're discussing, do you know yourself?
I think we need to talk about other threats because that's what we wanted to do.
Yallah, go for it then.
Let's go for it.
Are you a control freak?
Or a team player.
Oh my God. Are you a control freak or a team player? I want to do an exercise with them.
Okay, let's go for
Get a
it.
piece of paper. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, get a piece of paper. Such a funny joke. Allah Hafiz says Misbah. Oh, she's going. Fi amanillah. It has been really good show. I've got to go to sleep, I think, or attend other things. May Allah bless you, Misbah. Okay.
Thank you
So
so
the
much.
exercise are, you need to get a piece of paper. Guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, get a piece of paper. And I want you to put true and false next to the answers, questions that I'm going to ask. Tick, it's true or false. First one, I am bossy and domineering. I find it difficult to delegate. If you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. If that's you, in other words, if it reflects you, then you tick true. If it doesn't reflect you, then you tick false. Got it? I'm bossy and domineering. I find it difficult to delegate. If you want it done right, you have to do it yourself.
Are you doing it as well, or?
No. Are you going to read the second one? So have you done the first one, ladies and gentlemen? Second one, my wife is going to read.
So number 2, I verbally and mentally bully or manipulate people into submission using fear, guilt, or intimidation, even exaggerating issues to have better control of the situation. So if it's true, or any part of it is true for you, then you tick the true. And if it's completely false, then you tick the false.
Read it again, please.
So number 2, I verbally and mentally bully or manipulate people into submission using fear, guilt, or intimidation, even exaggerating issues to have better control of the situation.
Okay, so that was that's number 2. Number 3, I am a perfectionist. It's my way or the highway. I have to have the last say in everything and refuse to listen to anyone else's point of view. True, you tick true. False, you tick false. It's about you, not about your wife or your husband. It's about you, remember? I'm a perfectionist. It's my way or the highway. I have the last say in everything and refuse to listen to anyone else's point of view. Number 3, that was. Number 4.
Okay, number 4, I sulk and pout and generally make everyone's life miserable until I get my way or people simply give in to me. I sulk and pout and generally make everyone's life miserable until I get my way or people simply give in to me. If it's true, let's see. If it's false, let's see.
Okay, very good. That was number 4, right? Number 5. I make attention and affection conditional on compliance. I make attention and affection conditional on compliance. Did you understand that? I make attention and affection conditional to compliance. True or false for yourself?
Number 6. I use passive aggression involving intentional procrastination and deliberate stubbornness.
Say that again.
I use passive aggression involving intentional procrastination and deliberate stubbornness. If it's you, tick true.
Why do you laugh so loudly? Does that apply to you a lot?
It's very obvious. Very obvious where I would tick.
Right. Number 7. I belittle others with the intention to destroy confidence and make them weak and dependent. I belittle others with the intention to destroy confidence and make them weak and dependent. True or false?
And the last one.
Number 8.
Number 8, I think. 1, 2, yeah. I tend to control finances and decide on what or what not to buy. So I tend to control finances and decide on what or what not to buy.
Right. Those were the questions we have done today. Just to recap. Number 1, I'm bossy and domineering. I find it difficult to delegate. If you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. If you believe that, then you tick true if that applies to you. Otherwise, false. Number 2, I verbally and mentally bully or manipulate people into submission using fear, guilt, or intimidation, even exaggerating issues to have better control of the situation. True or false for yourself? Number 3, I'm a perfectionist. It's my way or the highway. I have to have the last say in everything and refuse to listen to anyone else's point of view. Number 4, I sulk and pout and generally make everyone's life miserable until I get my way or people simply give in to me. Number 5, I make attention and affection conditional to compliance. Number 6, I use passive aggression involving intentional procrastination and deliberate stubbornness. That's number
6.
Number 7, I belittle others with the intention to destroy confidence and make them weak and dependent. And number 8, I tend to control the finances and decide on what or what not to buy. Right, questions done. Now, obviously, there is an answer sections to it. This is the results. If your answers are true, hold on. Before you give anything else, let's ask. Why don't you put your
answers in?
What number of trues and number of falses you have got? So how many trues and how many falses have you got? If you can put it up on the screen, that would be nice. Let's see if anybody has actually done it.
Let's see. Let's wait a little bit.
Yeah. Who has done this exercise with us? And if you have done the exercise, let's hear how many true and how many falses, how many trues and how many falses you got as a result of your exercise. Come on, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Catherine says 1 true, 7 false. Well done. Maima says 2 trues. Mumtaz Bari says 1 out of 7 true, remaining false. Okay, let's carry on. Anybody else has done this exercise with us? We've got 3 so far: Catherine, Maima, and Mumtaz. Has anyone else done it? Is it true or false in your case? We are looking for some answers just to see where you guys are. If you don't want to share, that's okay too, but it's fun to hear people's answers, right?
Yes.
We should have done it ourselves.
No, I was doing it in my head.
Okay, let's see what the score indicates then.
So it's a simple one actually.
Hold on. Rahima Begum says 6 false and 2 true.
Okay, so if you answer true to 1 or 2 questions, and it's likely you are a control freak. So those of us who have truths,
Two, up to two.
truths, who have one or two truths, we are likely to be control freaks.
Mm-hmm.
Responding to three or more questions suggests that a control freak is violating your emotional freedom. You want to explain this a little bit so people can actually make sense of.
Of course, of course. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there are two truths in your answer, then there is an element of control freakery within you. That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more than two, in other words, three, then you need to realize that actually control freakery is a bit more than just a little bit in your life. And like this, it goes more and more. The more you score, the more control freak you become. In other words, more true you say, the more of a control freak you are. And it's a problem if you're a control freak, because control freak actually has a tendency of destroying a relationship. You know why? You're born free. Allah has made you free. Nobody should have undue control over you. Nobody. Emotional control, physical control, financial control, sexual control. Nobody should have any control over you in that way. Undue control. There's a difference between fair control and undue control, because we can't be uncontrolled. It's human. It's impossible to have that. There has to be a degree of accountability. That's what we call control here. But undue control means you are absolutely terrified, petrified of your spouse. And if that's the case, then there is a control freakery going on from your spouse. Is he controlling you emotionally, physically, financially, sexually, emotionally, spiritually? How is he or she controlling you? And if they are controlling you, you need to break away from that, because that's a big threat to a relationship. I just want you to be very careful. How does it sound, brothers and sisters, when you hear about this aspect of control freakery that we're talking about?
It's actually really easy to miss this.
Yeah, very easy.
In our daily life, we don't realize that, what we do, it has an impact on someone else. It has an impact on us. It has an impact on children. It has an impact on the house. We don't realize that these little elements that, when you start pulling apart the idea of what does it mean to be a control freak, and we laugh about this, we joke about it, we do. This is how it has become.
He's a control freak, often is a joke. Don't say that is a joke, because underneath that there is something else going on.
And also, we really need to understand those trends that we carry within ourselves. That where are these things coming from? Is it something I was born with? Clearly not. Where did I pick this up? Why did I learn particular traits? And how can I modify my behavior so I can be kinder to myself? I can have a better relationship with myself. Because the bad news is that if you are a control freak and you are a control freak with somebody else, it's very likely that you are also imposing some suffering on yourself. So it's not just when I'm a control freak, it isn't just affecting you. It affects me. I'm not able to exercise self-compassion. I'm not able to practice compassion with anybody else. It affects everybody in the equation.
Somebody says, Mumtaz Bari says, number one, I'm bossy and domineering. I find it difficult to delegate. If I want it done right, you have to do it yourself. If you want to do it right, how is that control freak? Well, look, it is because you don't know how to delegate. Nobody in life can survive without delegation. So my wife has decided that after cooking in the evenings, she would not get involved with tidying up and cleaning in the kitchen. She delegated that responsibility to the children. That delegation would not have happened had she been a control freak. She would have said, no, the children can never do things right. They're too young. They'll mess it up. Well, they'll mess it up and they'll learn. Now they've become perfect at what they do. Very beautifully they tidy up every evening after dinner without us having to mollycoddle them or hold their hands and teach them. They only needed 1 or 2 days of learning with us, and a month of Ramadan was enough for them to learn the whole thing. SubhanAllah, they do an amazing job. If my wife was a control freak, she would not be able to delegate. The same as me. I leave responsibilities for people. If I couldn't delegate, I would be a control freak.
And part of this is that when you are delegating, you have to exercise trust.
Correct.
You're trusting in somebody else. So that trust is quite hard to do. If you're a control freak, you have serious problems with trusting others, but also you can't trust yourself. So it goes to two ways.
I think you've gone deeper, which is very beautiful, and that is it manifests mistrust in your relationship. You can't trust your husband or your wife, and you can't therefore delegate. You have to constantly be in control, dominating everything. Well, that's not a safe environment for anyone's growth. And we're saying when you are control freak, it's a massive threat to your relationship. Because ultimately, if your spouse claims to know what's best for you, and they demand you to do things their way, they're domineering to the point of suffocation, and you feel you're being held prisoner to their rigid sense of order, and this relationship has no fun because it lacks spontaneity, you will not survive in such a relationship. What you want is a team player where you are both willing to negotiate, you're willing to demonstrate flexibility and adaptability, look for common good with all parties and not just yourself. You are altruistic, selfless, and non egotistical. You are adaptable with clear intentions, motivations, and have sound judgment. You are responsible when delivering the allotted or assigned tasks. You don't let the team down because you're part of the team. It's not your way or the highway. When you create a relationship where it's your way or the highway, that's a threat. Mumtaz says, thank you for the breakdown. It does make sense. Interesting perspective. I never really thought of it that way. Thank you, Mumtaz, for being so kind with us as well as honest. We like to hear your feedback. So we'll pause here today because it's nearly 10 o'clock and it is late. My wife's bedtime is almost ticking away, and I need to
It was an hour ago.
keep you away from your bed. And I need to have my dinner. I haven't had it yet. And literally, I've run through the house and sat down. So today we have talked about the threats to your marriage. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion next week. We'll not stop here. We're going to complete all 7. There are 7 threats to your marriage we've listed at the beginning. Today we've talked about control freak or team player and getting to know yourself and your spouse. If you don't know them, if you don't know yourself, it's a threat. And if you're a control freak in the relationship, it's a threat.
And for next week, we will put up the time when we will meet next week. We just need to check whether my son has football or not. Either 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday or 9 o'clock in the evening. We will see.
That's a good way of putting it. 9 in the morning or 9 in the evening.
Just keep checking either on the website
Just
or
9
Facebook.
o'clock.
And just remember 9 o'clock. So we will be coming. If you have any questions that you would like us to discuss, please send us an email at info@barefootinstitute.com. If you would like to come to the show, send us an email that you are interested in joining the conversation again.
Live, as well as with video or audio. We'll bring you as a guest, inshallah.
Info@barefootinstitute.com. If you have any questions, if you need support for your relationship, if you need individual support, again, we are here. This is what we do. We love doing, helping building confident Muslim families. So
counseling, coaching. What else do we do? Mediation.
You get people get married.
I help people get married. I say I get married very often, almost on a weekly basis. I get other people married, of course. Don't forget that part. And you can buy our book, marriage book, on our website is available, barefootinstitute.com/bookstore. And my wife's book is also available called Heart Smart. Please do buy the book. Support us. Rahima Begum's question, what if it's to control heartbreak and prevent something big happening in the future? Well, Rahima, let's talk about this in more details. I've got more questions to ask you than just answer. So do raise this next time when we're here. Mumtaz Bari says, love the show. Thank you so much for your time. My favorite couple, mashallah. Thank you very much, Mumtaz. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 10 o'clock.
So we shall see you next week, either 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the evening. On Sunday, and we will continue the discussion on threats to marriage. We have discussed 2 today. We will go another 3 or 4 or maybe or 5. We've got 7 altogether to cover. So join us next week. Have a wonderful week, and inshallah see you next week.
May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.